how was that conversation like with, your parents and those things when it's like, hey, you're going to school, you just invested, all this money into this, education, and now, oh, by the way, I'm not doing that, and I'm jumping into a career that is, commission based. What was that conversation like for you? And did you have doubters, supporters? Where did everyone fall on your end, on your
Yeah,
side of
that's a
things?
that's a great question. To be honest with you, I don't remember having any doubters, but I don't for those people that know me, I do have a fairly strong personality. And so I don't know, maybe people were scared to doubt me or whatever, but I don't really even remember how I told my parents. I don't think, I mean, I started it while I was finishing school also. So I think I was still serving for the first few months. And so I think it was kind of like, well, probably everybody thought like, oh, this is just a fad. Like, he's going to do something else, whatever, whatever. My girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, I mean, she was a year behind me. So she was still in college. So it was kind of like, it wasn't a huge deal. I don't think back then. Now, I think it's a bigger deal for people who are leaving a career at, 30 some years old with kids and all of that stuff. It's definitely a different conversation.
Yeah. What year did you graduate? What year did you get your license?
Uh, '04 for both.
Okay. Okay. So 2004, you decide that I'm gonna get my license. Now, did you go and work with the agent that kind of planted that seed?
Yeah, so just for a short time, he was a great guy, hustler. Actually, like thinking back to what he was doing all Mike Ferry stuff. And he had, I want to say, if my mind serves me correctly, he had been doing it for like 2 years and he had like 20 some active listings. Like
Mm,
he was crushing it, just cold calling all the time. But he was one of those guys. And if you're listening, Chris Johnson, like, thank you for getting me into real estate because it definitely changed my life and my family's trajectory forever.
yeah.
But he's one of those guys that had a short attention span, like so many of us, right, in this industry. And we can get into that later, how that's bit me a few times. But he ended up like getting out of real estate. I left his team because he was all over the place, and then he got into mortgage, and then I know he did some website design stuff, and he did a few other things. I still see him pop up here and there on social media. But great guy, just hustler. He goes all in on these things and then gets bored and then jumps to the next thing, which I'm sure we may talk about, like ways to have success and how that's the easiest way to fail in this business is to jump from thing to thing to thing. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I joined his team for 9 months and then went. Then that's when I moved to KW. I was with Remax with him, moved to KW just because the monthly fees were less. To be honest, that was really the only reason. Um, and then really just embraced the growth mindset, education, culture. And I know back then there wasn't as much free education out there. I feel like, and when did you get licensed again?
I got it in 2011.
Okay. But I feel like even in 2011, like there just wasn't like the
The
amount of
internet wasn't.
free
Yeah.
education.
The
Like it
internet
was.
wasn't what it is now.
No, and everybody was way more like, this is my information. Like, I'm not sharing, like, this type of thing just didn't happen. And so at the time, it was kind of what Keller Williams was known for, was just being open book and sharing and everything else. Actually, um, yeah, so I just had some people say like, "Oh, you should come over here," and I'm like, "Well, are your top agents going to share their listing presentation?" And they're like, "They're not doing that," and I'm like, "Well, they are." And so, like, if your people start doing that, I'll talk to you. But otherwise, like, I'm going to stay over here where these people that have been doing it for 30 years are willing to share their stuff with me and give me, a leg up, because I really don't want to learn by making the same mistakes that everybody else did.
Yeah.
Um, So really dove into education. And I would say like that's what got me through. Obviously, for those of you that know what happened in the real estate market from '04 to 11 when John got in, lots of change. But one of the biggest benefits of the fact that I had like literally I turned 22 and got my license 3 days later. And so I was living in Columbus. I always joke like my friends didn't even know where they were sleeping that night. They were more worried about where they were going to get a drink that night than where they were sleeping that night. And so I didn't actually sell a house to somebody I knew because I wasn't from here, had no
Yeah.
sphere here until I had been in the business for 3 years. And I firmly believe that that prepared me the best possible way for the downturn, because I had to scrap for every one of those deals. And so then I, fast forward three and a half years later, and all of my friends were turning 25, 26, which now is still young to buy your first house. Back
Yeah.
then, I feel like more people were buying at that age. And so then my friends started buying, and it was like, oh man, this is awesome. Like, you mean I don't have to go like, so it was like 2008, what? And the prices are dropping. So now it makes complete sense because it's way less than rent. So in a lot of ways, like those first 3 or 4 years where I was young and I looked like I was 15, even though I was 22, 23, and then also just prepared me. So I didn't feel like the downturn in the market really impacted me. If anything, it was easier because there were fewer agents in the market.
Well, let's
Um,
dive